Life in the Belarusian village. It is completely different and only few people have seen it. There is no fuss here, people live not by an alarm clock but by the sunrise. Here people get sick less and live longer. Here people enjoy simple things and understand the value of a family. Let's open the secret of the Belarusian village. Why today more and more Belarusians decide to move from the city to the village? And why do foreigners decide to move to Belarusian village? So, more than 70% of the population of Belarus lives in cities and towns, and these are just the places that foreign tourists usually visit in Belarus. But what about the remaining 20–30% of Belarusian population? How do people live in the Belarusian countryside? What do they do and how does nature outside the city look like from a bird's eye view? What is usually hidden from the eyes of a tourist in Belarus? That's what I'm going to tell you about today. Have a cup of aromatic tea, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. The first thing that impresses any tourist arriving in Belarus by plane is how many forests and fields there are, and how smartly every piece of the land is used. This is understandable since agriculture is an important sector of the economy of the Republic of Belarus, ensuring food security and export potential. Thus, a large number of people who live in villages work in the agricultural sector. The share of agricultural production is about 7% of the gross domestic product. Belarus is almost completely self-sufficient in food. Food imports account for less than 10% of the total consumption. The main types of Belarusian agricultural products are milk, livestock and poultry meat, grain, potatoes, vegetables, sugar beets and linen raw materials. In terms of production volumes of the main types of agricultural products, Belarus is one of the leaders among the countries of the post-Soviet space. The production of agricultural products per capita corresponds to the level of developed countries, and in many positions like production of potatoes, sugar beet, meat, milk exceeds the figures achieved in the CIS countries. By the way, climate change also affects Belarus, and this is directly reflected in agriculture today. More and more heat-loving plants, fruits and vegetables began to grow here. This year, for example, a kilogram of tomato cost just 60 kopecks, and all because the summer was very hot and the tomatoes grew well. It is also normal to grow watermelons and melons in Belarus today. I filmed this video at the end of August, and this is just the time when the grain crops are being harvested in the country. The workers start the day very early at dawn, as there is a lot of work to do and the grain must be harvested before the rain comes. By the way, in Belarus, each region of the country competes in the speed of harvesting as well as its quantity. Also today, it has become normal for local people in villages to have their own pool on their plots, and again, this is due to climate change. A couple of years ago, this trend did not exist. Another area in which people in Belarusian countrysides are employed is work at milk farms and dairy factories. Almost every city and town in Belarus has its own such plant. Belarus is world leader in milk production per capita. Foreign exchange revenues to the budget from the sale of dairy products are second only to such giants of Belarusian economy as the oil industry and the extraction of potash fertilizers. According to experts, the republic earns more than $2.5 billion a year from the supply of dairy products. Today, Belarus exports dairy products to more than 55 countries of the world. The most capacious export product is cheese. It occupies around 45% of the total export of dairy products. And let's also touch on a popular topic: what language is spoken in Belarus and in particular in a village. There are two official languages in the country: Belarusian and Russian. But unfortunately, the Belarusian language is now spoken mainly only in the villages. Townspeople prefer to communicate in Russian. By the way, the situation is the same with schools. Only in the village, children continue to be taught subjects in the Belarusian language. By the way, this really hinders children in the future, because after school they go to city universities where teaching is already in Russian language. Often tourists notice very relaxing atmosphere both in Minsk and in the country as a whole. And this is one of the main reasons why people from other countries move here to live. As for the Belarusians themselves, many remain to live in the village just because they feel comfortable here. Now the country is running a program for the revival of the village. Working on a collective farm, you get a new house for free, and if you continue to work for 10 years, then the house becomes your property. For this reason, many young families prefer to live in the countryside. Also, often young people who work remotely decide to move to live in the countryside for the sake of peace, clean air and fresh food from their personal gardens. Foreigners also really like the idea of buying a house in the countryside and thereby getting the opportunity to stay in Belarus for a longer time. By the way, in the Brest and Gomel regions, in the border zone with Ukraine, there are many Ukrainians who moved to Belarus, and in the Vitebsk region, you can meet many Russians again due to the fact that the borders is nearby too. Belarus is very safe in general, and this is especially true in the countryside, because here everyone knows each other and prefers not to dishonor the family. And this video was filmed in the Kletsk district of the Minsk region. It is here where I was born and raised, and as a hostess I'm glad to tell you more about this region. Kletsk itself is a small town with a population of only 10,000 people, green and very cozy. The streets, houses and temples of the city keep the memory of legend of their past. The main population of the region is Belarusians, obviously. There are also some Russians, Poles, Ukrainians, Tatars and some other nationalities. The beginning of the biography of the town of Kletsk is considered to be 1127. It arose on the site of a feudal castle, and already at the same time it was the center of the principality as a part of the Turov-Pinsk land, had extensive trade relations with Kiev and Volyn. At the beginning of the 14th century, it entered the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. On 27 of August in 1652, the city received a coat of arms and the Magdeburg right to self-government. After the second partition of the Commonwealth in 1793, Kletsk became part of the Russian Empire and became a town in the Slutsk district of the Minsk province. On 18th of March in 1921, the city of Kletsk became part of Poland. And on September 17th in 1939, Kletsk was liberated by the Red Army. The treacherous attack of the German invaders on the Soviet country interrupted peaceful life in the Kletsk land as well. On 27th of June in 1941, the Germans captured the city of Kletsk. And only on 2nd of July in 1944, the Kletsk region was liberated from the invaders. It was also in Kletsk that the famous Belarusian educator and humanist Simon Budny preached in the 16th century. Here he also wrote the Catechism, the first book in the Old Belarusian language, published on the territory of modern Belarus. One of the features of Kletsk is the lack of Lenin Square, as well as a monument to him. Instead, the ancient market square of the city was named after Mayakovsky. I would also say that it is in the village that you can see the real Belarusian folk culture. Namely oral poetry, folk music, dances, various applied arts, folk theater. There are still local clubs in the village where people come and sing, dance, embroider. Very often among each other we hear expressions like Minsk is not Belarus. We mean that only by the capital one cannot judge the whole country, which is why it seemed important to me to show and tell how people live outside Minsk. I hope you liked my idea, and I will be glad if you support my work by liking and subscribing to the channel. And if you are going to fly to Belarus, I have great news for you. I have created a detailed guide where you will find information on whether you need a visa, how to fly to Minsk, customs control, insurance, how you can book an apartment or a hotel in Belarus today, the best places to visit, and other very important information which you must know before you are coming here. To buy a guide, write to me on Anfisa Belarus Instagram or to the email addresses or telegram addresses under this video. And thank you for watching. See you in Belarus.